Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. College hoop scheduling. It feels like every couple days there's something interesting to discuss. And on Wednesday afternoon, we officially got, via John Rothstein, the ACC-SEC Challenge games, okay? So bottom line, I think if you're watching a show like this, especially in June, you know how it works. But the ACC-SEC Challenge, this is like the third, fourth year that they've done it. When the SEC got rid of the Big Ten, got the SEC exclusively, they put together a challenge. There's been some really intriguing games. These games are always played in late November, early December. I was actually at the game a few years ago when Arkansas hosted Duke. That was one of the best atmospheres that I've ever been at. Duke had Auburn last year, a couple other intriguing ones. Alabama was at North Carolina. So on Wednesday, John Rothstein was the first to report the big ones. They became official Thursday, and this is what you need to know. If you love college basketball, we're getting great games on great, true home courts. Let's go ahead and dive into a few of the big ones as the marquee matchups that are worth discussing. We have UNC against Kentucky. We have Duke hosting the defending champion Florida Gators. We have Louisville traveling to Arkansas. Also, Will Wade and NC State going to Auburn. Let's go ahead and dive into a couple of these matchups. Listen, we're not going to do the 14-minute preview here in June. But I'll tell you, I think there's some intriguing matchups here that I want to discuss. The first one, the one that really, listen, I know that Florida Duke is probably the biggest on paper defending champ at Cameron Indoor. But I mean, let me just say it out loud. Carolina, Kentucky. Carolina versus Kentucky. And if you're a college basketball fan, it doesn't get much bigger than that. It feels big. You know, and it was funny, even on Thursday afternoon, Kentucky's social media team released some of the best moments in this rivalry. It's easy to forget they played an annual home and home for about 6 or 8 years, kind of the beginning of the Calipari era into about 2015 or so. They've obviously met in the NCAA tournament a bunch of times. We had the famous Anthony Davis block to seal a victory, John Wall going coast to coast to seal a victory. So this has been a fun matchup of the last 10 or 12 years. I'll say this too. I think it's going to be a really fun matchup in 2025 as well. First of all, huge brands, so that's awesome. Two, with the two teams, I think two teams in kind of different spots, and it's going to be an important game on both teams' schedules. For Kentucky, listen, I'll credit Mark Pope. You know, Mark Pope has said consistently, we're Kentucky, we want to be the best at everything. NIL, uniforms, transfer portal, we want to have the number one class. But he also said scheduling. He said, we want to have the number one schedule in America, and he is certainly living up to expectations. Not only Carolina at home, Indiana at home, Gonzaga on a neutral, Michigan State on a neutral. Who's the other big one? Oh, Louisville on the road, St. John's in Atlanta, Purdue as an exhibition game. If you're a season ticket holder at Rupp Arena, forget the SEC. You get Indiana, North Carolina, exhibition against Purdue. It ain't bad. But I'm just so excited to watch these two teams because, again, two different teams, two different programs at two different points in their trajectory. For Kentucky, clearly everything is trending up, okay? We don't have to spend 15 minutes breaking down their roster. We've done that plenty this offseason. We will have our college hoops offseason grade on Kentucky in the coming days. By the way, Kentucky fans, don't get mad at me. This game was scheduled after we recorded our offseason grade, so just keep that in mind. But I only bring it up because Kentucky trending up, coming off a Sweet 16, year one under Mark Pope. And what's interesting to me, listen, I have as the number 3 team in the country going into 2025, 2026. A nice blend of returnees, Otega Owe, Brandon Garrison, high upside transfers. And the thing that I keep going back to, they are just going to be so much bigger and more athletic than they were a season ago. Mo Diabate, I think, is going to be a breakout guy that everybody at Rupp loves. I think by this point, we hope to see Jaden Quaintance on the court. Jalen Lowe is awesome. You go on and on down the list. Who am I missing? Denzel Aberdeen is going to be really good. But then the counter to that is North Carolina. No, again, feels like two ships passing in the night. Mark Pope can do no wrong right now. Hubert Davis, there is a lot of pressure on him coming into 2025, 2026. Now, to be fair to him, this team, his roster is growing on me a little bit. Now that it's fully come together, I think there's a couple noteworthy things. We talked about Luka Bogovic a few weeks ago, the European wing, one of the top players in Europe, committed to Carolina. I thought he was kind of the player that brought all of the other pieces together. You liked the individual pieces, but you said, how do they all fit, right? You have Kyan Evans, transfer from Colorado State at point guard. I like Henry Visar, the center from Arizona. I really like Caleb Wilson. Remember, by the way, Caleb Wilson committed to North Carolina over Kentucky, and I saw him tweeting or Instagramming about this game, so you know that he is excited. But I'm just curious from the Carolina perspective because it feels like, again, we recorded our offseason grade before this game was announced. Good schedule, wouldn't call it an elite schedule, though. Michigan State in an MTE. You have Kansas at home. You have Ohio, but there's not a lot of big. This is a big one. And if Hubert Davis wins this one, I think it would obviously go a long way in, kind of getting some of the fan base back on his side. But intriguing matchup. Like I said, I think Carolina's roster is growing on me. I love Kentucky's roster. That is a game to be excited about. You know what else is something to be excited about? How about Florida at Duke? Okay, first of all, don't know. And, the ESPN conspiracy theorists can work their magic on this one. Duke, second straight year, they get a home game. I don't know. I'm not asking too many questions. I'm not, hitting up the Illuminati on that one. I'm just sitting there saying Duke got Auburn last year. Duke gets Florida this year. But I'll tell you this, man. How can you not be fired up about the defending champion Florida Gators going into Cameron Indoor Arena? Okay, first of all, thing about Florida that stands out to me. And, at some point I want to get Todd Golden on this show. I think he would do it. I don't want to get too much into it, but we've exchanged some texts here and there. I bring it up because last year, if you remember Florida, going into SEC play, they open in Rupp Arena against Kentucky, okay? But I bring it up because in going into that game, we didn't really know much about Florida. They had a little bit of a soft non-conference schedule. Now, turns out they were fine. Played Kentucky in one of the great regular season games we've seen in a long time. By the way, my nose is itching again. I know I keep saying it. It's annoying, whatever. But I bring it up because last year with Florida, I think that was a very big question about that team going into SEC play. Okay, they've got this great record. They were undefeated, but how good were they really? Well, this year, Todd Golden is leaving nothing to chance and nothing to question because he has a monster out-of-conference schedule. Opening night, he'll play Arizona in Vegas. Vegas, by the way, is Arizona South. It's basically, they call it McHale South because there's so many Arizona fans that show up every time they play in Vegas. They're playing UConn in the Jimmy V Classic. They call Madison Square Garden Store South because so many UConn fans show up. And Florida is playing at Duke in this matchup. And again, I think why Florida is playing more marquee games is because people want Florida in these games after winning a national championship just a few months ago. So excited about this one. I think the big thing, early test for Florida on the road. I like both of these teams. I think I have more questions about Florida maybe than some other people do. It's interesting. I look at all these way too early top 25s. I have my own opinions. I'm not saying anybody's opinion is right or wrong. I've seen him as high as like number 2 in some people's polls. I think that's a little bit high for me. Boogie Fland has to prove that he can consistently play winning basketball. Xavier Lee, by the way, very interesting, committed to Florida basically over Duke in the portal. But those big guys, Tommy Hawk, Alex Condon, Ruben Chinyelu, Micah Hanlockton, they'll be locked in and ready to go. And then with Duke, I'm just fascinated because this is a team that profiles a lot like last year's team. You have the star, 5-star National Player of the Year type player in Cam Boozer. You have basically size and athleticism all around him. And in some ways, Duke actually has more coming back next year than they did this year with Malik Brown, with Pat Ngongba, with Darren Harris. You go on and on down the list. Isaiah Evans, who kind of had his breakout game in this event last year against Auburn. So I'm just curious to see Duke. One thing I'll say about Duke, too, kind of like Mark Pope, kind of like Todd Golden, not afraid to schedule some big games. How about Duke's out-of-conference schedule? They are playing Texas the first week of the season. Remember, Texas, Sean Miller, they're not a pushover. They play they play Kansas, in the Champions Classic. They play Florida in this game. They play Arkansas on Thanksgiving Day. They play Michigan. They play Michigan State. Loaded schedule. Credit John Shire, man. I'll say this about him. I think he understands the responsibility of the Duke brand. He ain't ducking anybody. This one should be a good one. Mentioned that Duke is going to be playing Arkansas. How about those Arkansas Razorbacks hosting Louisville? Okay. So it's really interesting. I try to follow as much of this stuff as I can, fan bases, conversations, whatever. And I only bring it up because it felt like, last year, okay, Calipari gets the job, schedule comes together late. You're trying to piece it together. Very nice schedule. Baylor and Dallas. You had Michigan at Madison Square Garden. You had Illinois on Thanksgiving Day. I think a lot of Hog fans were like, well, we're going to get a big home game. Well, so far, so good, because this is a big one, okay? Louisville, in my opinion, is a top 10 team coming into next year. Louisville, in my opinion, is the favorite in the ACC. By the way, for those of you who follow the Torres on Hogs account, I think we tweeted out, our intern there tweeted out favorites in the SEC, Louisville. Yeah, he obviously meant ACC. It happens, whatever. Louisville's so good, man. And Pat Kelsey, listen, Pat Kelsey is just a terror. He doesn't back down from anybody. And he has a very, very, very good team. The guards are good. I think he might have the best backcourt in college basketball. Isaac McNeely, best three-point shooter available in the portal. Ryan Conwell, I've consistently said it. He's about 6'3", 6'4". If he was 6'7", he'd be in the NBA right now. Great college player coming over from Xavier. Adrian Woolley, I believe, is a guy with NBA upside. Then, oh, by the way, don't forget they also have Mikael Brown Jr. coming in as a freshman. Front court is really good. Pryor's back. Javon Hadley's back. So I really like this Louisville team, but I think this is also an interesting early season test for Arkansas. I've said it. I'm not backing down. I know I was high on Arkansas last year, and they kind of made me look silly there for a while. I really like this team, and I think the great thing about Arkansas, we're going to get to find out pretty early how good that team is, because Calipari ain't ducking anybody this year, okay? This game at home in December. Worth noting, there's a report that Baylor will play in Fayetteville. That is not confirmed yet as far as I know. But how about the other two big non-con games? Duke on Thanksgiving Day. Tell your family it's going to be a two-screen kind of night on Thanksgiving night. That is an 8 p.m. Eastern game on CBS. And then the one that got announced this week as well, Houston versus Arkansas, December 20th at Barclays Center, okay? So very interesting matchup there. The one thing I will tell you, I've been covering Calipari for a long time. When he puts together a schedule like this, it means to me that he feels like he has a team that can compete for a national championship, because Houston is a preseason top 5 team, probably the Big 12 favorite. Duke is a preseason top 10 team. I have Louisville as the favorite, but it doesn't really matter. Louisville and Duke, in my opinion, are the two best teams in the ACC. Calipari ain't ducking anybody. This game's going to be awesome. Pat Kelsey. By the way, there's obviously the Calipari versus Louisville, angle. I know Calipari never faced Louisville with Pat Kelsey, but it's kind of interesting. And yeah, should be a fun one there. Arkansas and Louisville. By the way, Louisville's not ducking anybody in out of conference either. They will play a couple weeks after this one, Indiana in Indianapolis. They'll play Memphis. They'll play Kentucky early in the season. I can't wait for the season, man. There's so many good games. We still got a lot of college football, but I'm excited for the season as well. Really quickly, the only other one that really, really stood out to me, and I think part of it is just the lack of depth, in my opinion, in the ACC. There's just not a lot of great teams. It is NC State at Auburn, and I think, you look at it and say, NC State, why does that really matter? Will Wade walking into the jungle. Will Wade walking into an SEC basketball arena, and he's walking in with a team that I believe is a top 25 team. We've talked about him. We had Will Wade on the show. He talked about Darion Williams, the transfer from Texas Tech. Talked about some of the other guys that he has had on his team. I think it's a top 25 team in college basketball. They themselves have an interesting schedule at Auburn. They have Kansas at home. They get Duke and North Carolina at home in the only meetings between those two teams in ACC play. So really excited to watch that one. Don't want to spend too much more time on games that are now 5 months from now, but I think it's intriguing. A couple other ones, Miami, Ole Miss. Jay Lucas, I think, is going to have a better team than people realize. Virginia, Texas. Keep in mind, 2 first-year head coaches. I think Odom, the new Virginia coach, maybe has a little bit of a better team than maybe I've given him credit for. Sean Miller, as I've said, is a dog. Oh, by the way, on top of that, Syracuse, Tennessee, the old orange on orange game, Alabama versus Clemson. Alabama fans are furious. It feels like they play Clemson like 3 times a year. Every year they played in the ACC-SEC Challenge a few years ago. They played Clemson in the NCAA tournament a few years ago. And it's, of course, quite the football rivalry. We'll see if it ever matches up on the basketball court. But ACC-SEC Challenge is out. I think there's a lot of reason for excitement. A lot of great games that I am very excited about.